This particular course, which is entitled, as you know, with 3 words, okay? Contemporary sociological theory. So involving 3 aspects with which we hope all feel themselves related with, okay, somehow. So this section, contemporary. Okay, let's start with the contemporary. What's contemporary? Contemporary practically means that something coterminous with our own selves, okay? So we are standing now at the end of what we think a long duration of time, and contemporary stands here together with us, okay? But especially when you think about theory in terms of the history of ideas and so on, for instance, you may tend to think that the older ideas are old, okay? Their time has passed since then, okay? But somehow those old ideas prove that we are wrong in thinking about their being past, okay? They still continue to exert their strong influences on our thinking today, okay? This is the first part. So that's why a course which intends to deal with the contemporary material necessarily finds itself to start with the older thinking, okay? This is the first section. The second one is that sociological, implying that what we are going to discuss here are somehow related with this social or with the science of the social, sociological theory, okay? Okay, within this course we are going to raise the question of what this sociological are, okay, in the first place. And the third section, theory, perhaps the most difficult one to comprehend, okay? You know, especially sociology students, when we approach to the world, to our world, the social, okay, this is our material. Society is over there, individuals there, just like you sitting just before me, and I am as a scientist of the society, okay, the people, okay, will come to you, ask you questions, observe you, how you behave, etc. And then out of these empirical observations of mine, try to develop, try to organize those observations into a comprehensible whole, okay, and present to the others, to other sociologists, to others who are interested in the knowledge of the social, okay, as a comprehensible something, okay, here, I would say that here is the knowledge that I acquired from studying the social, okay, so do what you want to do with it, okay? And so we assume from the very start that the social is over there, right before us, standing, okay, awaiting for us to study it. But the difficulty is that, and here in this difficult part comes the notion of theory into the picture. The difficulty is that, okay, despite what we like to think, okay, without theory, it would prove itself to be impossible to deal with what we call the empirical, okay? So all our approaches, all our approaches culminating in our understanding of whatever it is, okay, necessarily calls for a theory, a theoretical approach. This theoretical approach could be something which once good old Althusser used to call, okay, the spontaneous ideology, okay? We tend to think that we do not need theory to be able to understand what's going on over there, etc. But as long and as much as at the moment our problem of understanding interferes into our ways of acting, you would immediately realize that some kind of, whatever you call it, doesn't matter, ideology, a perspective, a theoretical viewpoint, a conceptual framework, a model, okay, necessarily evolves into the picture, simply because empirical reality as such in itself is not something to understand. Okay? Actually, as living beings, for us, empirical reality is something to live through. Okay? We live inside. Okay? There's a wall, a chair, animals, plants, other people, etc. And without necessarily much thinking, I would be able to live among it. Okay? Within this empirical reality, as everybody, to be able to live in any society or in any part of the world, one does not need to be a sociologist. One does not need to have a theory. Okay? Simply acting according to the situations, acting according to one's own moods of spirit, okay, one would be able to make that living thing. Okay? But theory, therefore, forces itself upon us at the moment. We stand the world before us as an object of understanding. Okay? So, actually, Greek term, thaumazein, functioning as the root of our contemporary world theory, okay, implies a withdrawal from that empirical world. Okay, we are living as human beings. We are actually living in this world without posing the question of objectifying this world as our object of knowledge. Okay, we are not concerned with the question of how to know this world. Okay, we simply live in it. Okay, so to be able to erect that world before us as the object of our knowledge, therefore, a certain withdrawal from that world, okay? It means withdrawal, okay? A certain withdrawal from that world, a stepping back from that world, turns out to be necessary to be able to see what's going on over there, okay? For instance, to be able to make an evaluation of my family relationships, okay? I would take myself out, okay, in the daily ongoing activities of my family, okay, and locate myself at a separate place in my thinking and start to consider what's going on in my family, okay. So our effort then implies or starts with a theoretical or conceptual withdrawal from the world, okay. We erect the world before us. Actually, this implies a kind of separation, the world and me. The world, or in our case, actually for us, the social, and mark here, I'm not calling it as the society, but rather the social, okay? And me. What am I? On the first place, I do attribute a lot of peculiarities, characteristics onto myself. I could do that as part of my theoretical effort, as an effort of my withdrawal, okay? Well, first of all, one of the undeniable peculiarities of me here is thinking. This withdrawal actually is taking place in thinking. Okay, by this withdrawal, actually what I do, okay, to represent the world in my thinking to my understanding. Okay, the world is over there, but I had already withdrawn from the world. Okay, and now the world is in my thinking in the form of representation, and I now begin to think about this world to be able to make an understandable something out of this mess. Okay. So I as thinking something, and the world standing before me. Now this separation is called, actually this had started from the very beginning of history, since the time, of course I'm talking within the framework of the recorded history, since the time we know actually, people did this withdrawal to be able to think about the world and to be able to convey information about their knowledge of the world. Okay, so this is it appears to be the original separation, actually, paving the way or path to what we call knowledge. You know, we are here with the intention of producing knowledge about the social. We are here at the Department of Sociology. So our object is the social object of knowledge. So this is a relationship of knowledge, so to speak. Okay? And this relationship necessarily, as we have seen, divides the totality of the world into two. Okay? One is the object to be known, usually referred to as the object of knowledge, subject matter of the course, subject matter of a certain discipline, etc. Okay? And the knowing, or if you like, if we, as part of our theoretical assumptions, actually, an assumption accepted without further discussion, actually, attributing this capacity to me, myself, I'm making myself the knower. Or in other words, the subject of knowledge. I myself, Erdoğan Yıldırım, is the subject of knowledge about this social, which itself, it turns out to be the object of that knowledge. Okay? So subject of knowledge, object of knowledge, implying that these two, object and subject, are somehow and very closely connected with each other, inseparably connected with each other, but within a structure of inequality, so to speak. Okay? The subject assumed to be having the freedom, actually, if you like, actually freedom of the will to know. I may want to know or may not, okay? It's up to me. I'm the subject, and I have the power to decide about this willing activity, okay? I may want to know this or that aspect of the society or the social, or I may not, and rather I may choose other aspects to know. Okay, it's up to me, always up to me. But it's not the same with the object of knowledge. The object of knowledge, as long as I pose it, okay, as long as I assume that it is there, okay, is there, necessarily standing before me. Now, what this last sentence tells us, okay, it tells us that the object of knowledge is not there in itself or by itself, but I am erecting it there, okay? Think about the society. One of the basic, unavoidable terms of our discipline. And ask yourselves that question. Where is that society in your empirical reality? Is there anybody among you who have seen a society? Is there anybody among you who have had experiences of society? What you have seen is just a bunch of people, individual human beings. So where did you get this notion of the society? Is there anybody among you who will be able to tell me? Where is that society? Is there anybody who's capable of pinpointing it out? Although we are not capable of showing it, we are not capable of pointing towards it, without doubt, almost all of us accept the existence of the society. based upon what proof? What's your proof with regard to the existence of the society? Say, let's speak in empirical terms. Say Turkish society. Where is it?
Norms, for example, norms.
Norms? What kind of norms? Norms are empirical factualities. For instance, say, the norm of greeting an acquaintance. Again, even in such a case, we will not be able to show its empirical reality. Okay? What's greeting? Just tiny little smile, nodding the head, shaking the hands. What's it? Okay. So how come something like some certain notion like society or greeting or family, institutions, norms, or parental relationships or parent-children relations, okay? How come these present themselves to our understanding as tangible empirical realities? For instance, we may speak of the poor, another very important concept in sociological research, poverty. What's that? Or, any student of sociology conducting any empirical research starts with these, what we call background questions, gender, age, income, etc. Okay? What are these? What does it mean to have say, 7,000 monthly salary? Just a certain bills of paper? Or a certain number of digits in a computer account? Or a certain amount of consumable goods? What we mean by when we say income of an individual or age of an individual? Okay. Say one person is at the age of 21. What does it mean? Is it the same for the person living in some part of the country and another person living in another part of the country? Okay. What do we mean by all these? Okay. Is it the same with a healthy person and unhealthy person being at the age of 21? A healthy person and a person with a cancer. Perhaps the age 21 may mean empirically for that person the end of life, while for another person it may mean just the beginning of the life. So where did you get these ideas that these concepts are empirical realities? Apparently, according to theoretical discussions, okay, out of your everyday spontaneous ideologies. Okay. Now, the task of sociological theory then, whether contemporary or not, in a way, sort of to debunk this spontaneous ideology or worldview of the sociologist or will-be sociologist. Okay. So, theory is about this. Theory is not a certain logical relations developed to be able to simply make a sense of a given empirical reality, okay? But rather, theory is a device or tool to construct, to build up that very empirical reality itself, okay? So it's out of theory, there comes something out of the social to which we refer as poverty, to which we refer as the social stratification, to which we refer as power, to which we refer as age, gender, etc., etc. And without the involvement of the theory, we wouldn't be able to have any of these so-called empirical realities, including age, income, place of residence, etc., etc. Okay? So, as I said, the theoretical effort then starts with that division. It appears that it's not necessary. This division is not part of living. One thing you should need to understand is this. This division does not belong to the art of living. Okay? This division belongs to understanding, the effort of understanding. Okay? So this means that it's not necessary for each and every individual human being, okay, alive, to engage in such kind of divisions. But all those who are in the need of understanding what's going on would necessarily fall into this division, it appears. Okay? It is this theoretical division or divide, so to speak, between the given object and the given subject. Actually, this has been expressed itself in the ancient Greek division, you know. That division is very famous and, strangely enough, still holds today. Actually, its development predates ancient Greek thinking, if we accept the theory that ancient Greeks are immigrants from India, Indo-European, you know. Okay, so it originally perhaps had been developed in India. The idea of the division of the human existence into the forms of body and soul. Okay. Of course, within this division, what is consecrated is the soul part. And what is desecrated is the body part. Okay? There are certain and several reasons for this. Okay? The soul part, first of all, has been described as the part capable of making this effort of understanding. Actually, I'm talking about the same division here, that same withdrawal. The understanding soul withdrawing itself in its effort of understanding from its body, okay? Dividing itself, dividing the integrity and totality of the human existence into two irreconcilable parts, actually. Okay? The soul, the intelligent part. So understanding and intelligence was attributed to the soul. Okay? It is the soul who understands the body. In other words, the soul functioning as the subject of knowledge, erecting body before itself as it is object. Okay? Fine, very good. Another important attribute, what could it be? Okay? The understanding soul. The understanding soul is at the same time conceived to be free from all of the other restrictions apart from the restrictions of thinking. Okay? In other words, freedom was conceived to be an attribute, a character of the soul as well. Okay? So the soul capable of imagining itself in its element is thinking, okay? In thinking, in its element, capable of imagining or thinking of itself at anywhere, at any place, in any form, okay? And in any relationship, without being subject to any other restrictions apart from the restrictions of thinking, which, of course, the poor body is left. Okay? The poor body is limited in time, limited in space, and subject to the forces operating in nature, okay? The poor body can be teared down by animal violence. The poor body can be killed in a battle. The poor body gets tired when it walks. The poor body needs sleep, etc., etc. Okay? Therefore, being subject to the conditions of the world. Or if you like, a better term for this, the poor body is nothing else than the animal or slave part of the human existence, okay? In contrast to this freedom. This freedom as well implies a kind of infinitude attributed to the soul as well, which finds its religious expression in the concept of the immortality of the soul. The soul is immortal. To put it in other words, okay, it's infinite. Okay? While body is finite. If it is infinite or immortal, the body is mortal. The relationship mortality and immortality immediately implying that one is passing away while the other is staying forever. Okay? One is passing away means transitory. Okay? In other words, subject to change, subject to decay. Okay? While the soul remains here without any change. Okay? And one of the guarantee of this immutable character of the soul comes from its understanding and intelligence, later on usually referred as reason. Okay? While the body was thought to be the location within human existence, the location of all those animal desires and passions. Okay? Or if you like, pathos, pain, suffering. Okay? Now, it was the same division. Now I began to decorate that division. Decorate it according to the comprehension of a certain time, of a certain society in history. Okay? Now, we may no longer think that, actually we do, but perhaps a possibility, come on, man, such a division does not hold. Okay? But what about a later and more modern division? Would you see any real serious difference between the two? Say the Cartesian division developed at the middle of the 17th century. Okay, this was several, 4 centuries before Christ. Now this was 17 centuries after Christ. Okay. And Cartesian famous duality was based upon the same principle, as you can see, okay? Conceived as the substances themselves. I'm going to talk later about what substance is, okay? Conceived as substances themselves, okay? The Cartesian understanding divided the world, the totality of existence, into 2 basic substances, okay? One was of the element of thinking, or if you like, spirit. You know, look at the affinity of the term spirit with the term soul, which was psyche in ancient Greece. Okay? And here, the other one was matter, whose basic characteristic was no longer thinking, but extension. Okay? Now, they are different. They are different, but approximating, so to speak, they are not the same. Do not misunderstand me, my point, okay? Well, they are, the later one is another effort to make the same, very same division, actually, okay? Again, we have a part which engages the task of understanding, knowing, and another part awaiting to be known. Okay, the same, almost the same, or the same problematic formulated in different terms, so to speak. Okay, better said. Okay, this was the basic division, which still continues in our contemporary separation between object and subject of knowledge. Okay. Now, I would like to touch upon another issue: how these ancients tend to think about the possibility of knowing and existence. I said that what was permanent conceived as the soul, psyche, okay, while the body had been desecrated and degraded by the characteristics of mortality, okay, implying or giving it, only giving it, recognizing it, an ephemeral reality or existence. Okay? And once, it needs just one step here, okay? We are at a certain threshold. Once you decide that what's worth to know is not the transitory and ephemeral, but what is permanent, say, okay, in our contemporary jargon, this means trying to know the laws of social change, for instance, okay? Try to know the laws regulating the social relations, for instance, okay? Rather than actually going on among people, okay? So poverty, for instance, being a generalization, or theories of social stratification being certain higher level of abstractions, actually referring to the laws of stratification in society, okay? So if you step into this area of research, trying to find out general laws powerful enough to regulate tiny little minor events taking place among people, okay, you immediately made your choice in that regard, okay? You say that what's worth to know is what's permanent rather than the transitory. Okay? If you said this, if you made that choice in ancient Greek, okay, you would assume a Platonic position, and just like Plato did, you would say that, okay, forget about this world. Okay, this world is transitory. Okay, so what should be worth to know should not be, cannot be, could not be this world, but the rules or forms, original models of this world, which themselves make it possible these transitory, ephemeral forms to come into existence. Okay? Now, I, myself, being a human, okay, Plato, okay, constituted of two parts, soul and body. Now, however, I seek knowledge as a philosopher, okay? I seek knowledge, and in this effort of knowing the world, what should I do? What I am expected to do is, of course, to neglect, to deny my transitory parts, and rather concentrate on to develop my immortal part, my knowing part, okay? My soul. Okay? So only by doing this, by developing, enhancing my soul, I would be able to get in touch with what was permanent in the world. Okay? So the Platonic theory of knowledge tells us that there are several versions. I'm going to make a rough summary of it, okay? Practically tells us that forget about this world. this world, what these people are actually doing, are not worth to know. Okay, so what's worth to know? The model enabling those people to come into existence, enabling those transitory mortal trees to grow, etc. Okay, the model, which he termed as eidos or idea, usually translated as the form or forms. Okay, so these are forms, molding all these transitory things into imperfect replicas of themselves. Okay, and according to Plato, which meant that somewhere there are discussions. That's why I'm not going to try to describe you where. Okay, there are disagreements on this topic among Plato's interpreters. Okay, therefore, I'm not entering into this discussion. Somewhere behind this ephemeral transitory world, there is a world of forms. Okay, at the apex of which there stands the form of good, agathon. Okay, so good, according to Plato, the form of good, okay, is the source of all existence. Okay? Every other form, lesser forms, okay, say just beneath the originary and primal form of good, there follows the forms of justice and beauty, according to Plato. Okay, and when you go downwards, okay, the other forms developing from the higher forms will proliferate. And finally, at the bottom of this world of forms hierarchy, okay, there you'll find some imperfect forms somehow intermingling with the matter, that imperfect matter, okay? That matter which is used to mold all the things to come into the world by making use of the original forms. Okay? So I have the forms in my pocket. Okay, there is something here, and I put that something inside these molds. Okay, and produce trees, produce human beings, produce other things in the world, and put them into, throw them into existence. Okay, what I am is nothing else than a demiurge, some kind of artisan god. Okay, as he talks about it. So, human existence in this world is somewhere where the forms and matter begins to intermingle with each other. You know, human existence is composed of two parts. Where was it? Body and soul. Okay, so body is the matter part of the human existence, while soul partakes the world of the forms. Okay. How are we going to know this? It's a story, but having important theoretical implications. If I would say to you, for instance, that we are going to do this by making abstractions, okay, you may perhaps come close to accept my proposal. Okay? But I'm going to say the same thing in Platonic language right now. Perhaps you'll find it quite shocking and unacceptable. Okay? Plato says that before the birth, human soul, which means that before the world, human soul was enjoying its immortality in the world of the forms, okay, while body was wandering somewhere. In other words, human soul was free of the limitations of the body. Okay? So in its own free immortality, the human soul was enjoying the experiences of the original forms. Okay? With the event of the birth, however, the soul unites with matter, body, okay, in a sense, falls into the world, okay, and forgetting all that it knows in this world of forms. Okay, so the task of philosophy, therefore, is to degrade, deny the effects of the body and concentrate to develop the soul just to help it to remember its earlier experiences with the forms. Okay? Another way of saying, let's delve into abstractions. Okay? Okay, so his task then, the task of man of knowledge, the subject of knowledge, so to speak, okay, is to remember. By the earlier forms. Okay, therefore, this means that according to this approach, you wouldn't need any empirical evidence to support what you claim you know. Okay? But rather, what you need, a coherent organization of your own abstractions. Okay? Quite coherent organization, which is quite difficult, let me say. Okay? There are certain difficulties, just like it was in the case of, for instance, the term, the social, society, etc. Say, we have talked about, for instance, justice. The fact is that Plato says that what really does exist is justice, not it is imperfect production within the dealings of human beings. Okay? So we engage in certain kinds of transactions, and we may speak about it, okay, about them, as if they are just or unjust kind of transactions. But according to Plato, okay, you cannot arrive at an understanding of what justice is by investigating the actual transactions. Okay? The actual transactions, don't forget, are all imperfect reproductions, so to speak, of the original form of justice. So all you have to do is to force your way into the conceptual world to be able to discern all that does not belong to the concept of justice, form of justice, to be able to arrive at the purity of the concept. Okay? But how? When we ask ourselves, do we really know what justice is? And if we're really serious about the question, unfortunately, we will find ourselves in a position to say that, no, we don't know. Okay? This was one of the alternatives just before the break. After the break, I'm going to talk about the other alternative.